Yeah.
All right, we are live.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
see what we got going on. Oh, like always, Sam, why are we always yelling? This is the first one in here. And I am aware that Slaying Aquatic is going live right now. He's been on, I think, for about an hour now, and it seemed like he was getting ready to wrap it up. So we'll see what happens with that. Uh, I was looking. There's sort of a schedule, not a schedule. There's a website called Fish Fam Link. Why am I having trouble this morning? Let me get my brain in gear. Fish Fam Link, and a lot of content creators will post. Oh, where'd I go? One of the things that they have on there is if you have a regular live stream, they'll post it on there.
Okay.
It's like a schedule. It's a
Yeah.
calendar that they have.
Hmm.
If you're looking about going live streaming, that potentially could be also a good source. Let's see. I'm
Okay.
having what the hell? Let me make sure my Wi-Fi is off. Yeah, that's off. I lost deal there for a while.
I can hear
Well,
you. Yeah.
I'll give it a second. You might be having some Wi-Fi issues. I don't know if that's on my end or your end. Can you guys see me and hear me well? It could be my end. Can you guys hear me well? Joining us. Query Delirium, thank you for coming in. You're having internet issues. You're breaking up. Okay, so it's my end. Let me. What can I do? That's been. I don't know why I've been having issues with it. My. Give me a second. I think I'm gonna have to leave the fish room. This. Oh, Wi-Fi. Mm, sorry about that. Edit. Let me see if it'll let me switch the channel on my Wi-Fi. Okay, so it's automatically set to switch. I think I'm having some issues with my own internet on my side. I apologize for that.
I mean, it looks pretty good now. I don't know if.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just I don't know why it was. Also, what I noticed is the quality that you could stream on Streamyard. I had heard somebody mention it. It went down, I think, from 1080 to 720. So
Oh
might
wow.
be time recently to start going live stream. But anyways, I want to thank everybody that's here today. If you don't know, this is Dio from DioAquatics, and he was kind enough to accept the invitation to come on today. Dio, do you mind giving us a little bit of your background and so that people that haven't seen you can get a little bit of information on you?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Dio Aquatics. I just started YouTube maybe a few months ago. Really. Um, Kind of decided to get into the YouTube thing just because I was finally able to set up my fish room here in my house that I just moved into about a year ago. So it was I figured let me record and process like keep track of everything that I've got going on out here. Why not just share it? Um, I live in New York, so uh, keeping fish in my area, at least like my town, isn't very common. So I've got to drive kind of far to go to good fish stores and stuff like that. But I've got a few clubs that I'm in. There's the Norwalk Aquarium Society and the Danbury Area Aquarium Society. They're both based maybe like 45 minutes from me, but they're still relatively close enough where I can go and you know with those clubs is really where I got majority of the fish that I have in my fish room now. Uh, before that, it was kind of just I was stuck with driving to like New Jersey to go to there's Discus Madness out there and a few other stores that are pretty good stores, but they you can't you just can't beat hobbyist bred and raised fish. So um, I keep a little bit of everything. Um, I mean, if you guys check out the channel, you'll see there's a lot of everything going on here behind me is my 180. So this is my pride and joy here.
So your fish room, I saw when you were starting to put that together.
Mhm.
Um, was your purpose just to have multiple tanks to be able to keep fish that you wanted, or are you trying to eventually, maybe down the road, set up like a business where you're reselling fish? Or
That's where I'm still a little bit undecided with that. It's tough because like there's so many fish that I wanted to keep. So like it started off originally. My original fish room actually in my parents' house was just to keep fish that I wanted. That's all it was. I had 8 tanks. It was 440 breeders and 420 longs. I didn't do any videos of any of that at the time. So I mean I have a few pictures and stuff like that, but back then it was just to keep fish. I wanted as many tanks as I could to keep all the fish that I liked. But then once I came here to my house and I was really thinking about it, it was more to I like wanting to try to breed fish. So like I've got, a bunch of different pleco types going. I ended up buying lots of different types of cories that I want to try to spawn. So like now it's more of just a breeding, raising, and then like being able to give back to in my clubs and stuff like that. Because it again, it's in my area, it's a little tough to find good fish. So if I could help with breeding, having some locally bred fish, and even getting them, to local fish stores that are a little bit of a ways from me, but like right now, it's more breeding on my own, not necessarily opening like let's say like a retail kind of store or reselling fish like that. I've thought about possibly doing like the whole importing stuff like that because I do have my LLC license, so it is something that I could do, and I know a couple people that have a few connections where I could possibly do that, but I don't know if I want to get into having to bring in that many fish to then try and resell them. I like just keeping fish that I like. If they breed, and then if I can get those out to other people, that's best case scenario for me.
yeah, the reason I was asking that is because it's something that I've always kind of, told people is that, a lot of people there's different reasons why people will create content or start up a channel.
Hmm.
But I think that one of the smartest things, if you're wanting to do YouTube for the long term, is build a business behind the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Because in the long run, that's what's really gonna sustain your channel. Not You're not gonna have to depend so much on always trying to come up with a new video and stuff like that.
yeah,
Uh, Especially if you take a look at some of the bigger channels within the fish community, for the most part, all of them will have some back end business that they're really running off of YouTube, and YouTube really being the advertisement tool,
yeah,
uh, because that's really what it is. All these videos are potentially ads that you're creating because you're showing what you have. Um,
yeah.
and the reason I say that is because like some people will create content and they want to kind of make this like their full time gig,
Hmm.
and I think you can do it. I mean, there's obviously you can do it because there's other people that have been able to do it, but the ones that have had the most success, or at least the ones that I've seen, are the ones that are, like I said, using a business to back behind it, and the
Yeah,
videos and the content that is being created, some of that subsidizes the business, but reality, it's more of a presence. People, it's just you're getting your face out there. People know who you are. There's a connection there. When you establish that, more than likely people want to, interact with you because you're familiar. You're somebody
yeah,
that they know. They somebody that they've grown, seen, and they've seen your evolution, and they know what kind of a person you can be and stuff like that. So I think it's for now, and I think in today's current content creation, it's great. If you're but you see, that's the whole thing. People are you have to be totally honest, because I don't know how many times I hear people say, "Oh, I'm not interested in doing this full time," but yet sometimes they'll make comments
Hmm.
and referencing to the fact that they don't seem happy with the success they're having. So it's kind of like, are you really being honest with yourself, or you're just trying
Yeah.
to, are you trying to not come off as somebody that's ambitious and wants to do something with, be self-employed? I guess that's what.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm kind of like you. I kind of everybody asked me, are you breeding for profit and stuff like that? And the reality is, I have like half of the fish room is quote unquote display tanks, and
Yeah.
the other half is just me trying to learn how to breed certain species. But it's not necessarily, the objective is not to breed for profit. I just want to breed more because I want to have more of the cool fish that I see out there and not
Exactly.
have to pay for them, because they can get pretty expensive.
I
There's,
most definitely.
if I can figure out how to breed a $20 fish, and I can get, another 5 or 6 out of that group, I'll be happy, because I just saved myself $100.
Yeah, that's a win. That's a win right
Yeah.
there.
So, but and then again, the way I usually try to do it, and I think really what it boils down to is not having the dedicated time. I have a real weird work schedule.
Mhm.
I think if I had more of a normal, 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever, like a morning where I work is mornings,
Yeah.
then I would have the afternoons where I could dedicate to being in here and being more focused on, like with egg scatters, pulling eggs
Yeah.
and trying to hatch them separately. Right now, it's kind of like, survival of the fittest, because they're all in an aquarium. I try to heavily plan them, and whatever survives survives, and if it doesn't, it
Yeah.
doesn't. I'm not overly concerned about it.
Mhm.
Would I like to be able to get what's in there to breed? Yes, definitely. But I'm kind of forcing the hand to have it happen without me intervening too much. And there's some species that'll do that for you. Live bears
Yeah.
are probably the ones that are more successful at doing that.
Yeah.
But I have a group of cherry barbs, and I haven't been able to
Oh,
get them to breed, but I know they eat their fry. They're real fry. They'll eat fry all the time. So maybe
yeah.
that's what it is. I don't have enough stuff in there. Maybe one day I'll see like one or two that have made it. But it's not also anything too expensive, because kind of like you, I'm in a rural area, and the only thing we have here is a PetSmart. So
Yeah.
my fish room is sort of a reflection of what the PetSmart carries, with me selecting what I like from there.
Yeah.
I think unlike you, I wish I was only 45 minutes away from mom and local fish stores, but I got to drive either 3.5 hours east to go to Phoenix, Arizona, or I got to go 3.5 hours west to go to San Diego,
Oh
because
my goodness.
I'm kind of like in the middle of those two bigger cities. I'm
Yeah.
out here in southern Arizona, and so it's kind of like, man, we'll go up to, we call it going up to the city, right? Because we sound like a bunch of little house on the prairie.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not a small community by no means. We have over 100,000 in populations, and it's
Okay.
funny because we call it a small town, and I know other people in other parts of the United States, and they go, "That's a big city." But for the West Coast, it's a small city, and obviously for where you're at, that's insignificant, because you guys have millions of people in
Oh
your
my God.
guys'
Yeah.
metro areas.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat where it's kind of like and that's the other reason why I I probably don't try to breed. I mean, it's always cool when you crack the code on a
Yeah.
fish, and you're able to successfully not only breed them but actually raise the fry.
Yeah.
Uh, but then what do you do when you have 100 plus of those fries? It's kind of like, all right,
Exactly.
it's not like you're gonna set up tanks for all of them to try to grow them out. So I know that's a reality. I came across that really quick when I was trying to breed an angelfish, and
Yep.
once I was able to, get them to get past the. I was struggling with getting them past the wiggler stage because I wasn't feeding them, I guess, as often. And it wasn't until I started introducing live foods that I guess they would survive long enough in the water column for they could graze all day and then allow me to get back from work and continue to feed them. And once I
Yeah.
figured that out, I was able to really, raise a lot of those fry. But for a minute there, I was kind of concerned because you have angelfish, and I don't know if you've been able to breed yours, but
Yeah.
200 fish is not uncommon for fry to be growing now. And I was looking at that and going, what am I going to do with all these angelfish?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so once I was successfully able to raise a couple of batches, and I felt comfortable knowing, okay, I know how to do this. I quit breeding them. I said, nah, I can't do that. I try to let the parents do it for a while,
Mm.
but they would eat the fry, and I wasn't too disappointed because again, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do with all these fish.
Yeah.
I had a store that wanted to buy them, but you start putting out a lot of fish of the same quickly, and they'll get to the point where they can only sell so many, and then it's kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. You're flooding the market with the same thing at that point. It's tough.
yeah. So I quit doing that. I had like three different pairs, and I decided to put them all in the community tank.
Mhm.
And now it's kind of like if they survive, they survive, and I'm just watching them. They just laid eggs.
Yeah, I'm
But
actually my pair behind me over here, behind the camera here, they have wigglers on the slate. So like I've been watching them the whole time.
have yours been able to, or is that the first time that they've done that?
So they'll spawn and get them to, wigglers and then free swimming almost every single time, but once they're at free swimming, they eat them.
Okay.
And
Now,
the
are you are
first
you are you keeping a like a nightlight on over the tank or something so that
No. So at
okay.
first I was with their very first spawn that I did keep. I had a little like a little blue light just next to the tank to keep some type of light, and I ended up actually keeping two of the babies that I have. They're in one of my 20s over here. Those from the very first spawn, and that's because I kept the blue light on. But now, like I mean, like you said, I'm noticing that when these guys spawn, it's 100, 150, 200 fish at a time. It's like, okay, if I keep all of these fish alive, what am I gonna do with them? So
Yeah.
I've kind of just stopped using the nightlight, and I'll let them, try to get them as far as they can in, their life cycle till they're, like I said, basically free swimming. Once they're free swimming, I notice they'll dwindle down over like the course of a couple days, and then there's nothing, but then they'll go right back to it. So I
Yep.
mean, I'm not necessarily trying to keep all these angels alive because then the thing is, a lot of local fish stores they can get angels relatively cheap. So
Yeah, but if you have two or three different stores that you could source, they'll take them
yeah,
because, again, it comes down to they rather get tank raised angelfish than having to bring them in.
yeah, most
They
definitely.
they tend to do better because it's like you all know it's anything that's raised in that water locally is gonna thrive a lot better than something
Yeah,
something you're bringing in from somewhere else.
yeah,
But what I ran out is
most
I only had one store, and I flooded him real quick, and
definitely.
he's like, yeah, no, he ended up having like almost 200. He had like three tanks that he was keeping some of those fries, and you know, he was kind of like, yeah, no, I think we're good for now.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm just letting these guys go at it. I mean, I would love to be able to have them parent raised by themselves. The guy that I got these from actually said that they will parent raise. So I don't know if maybe they've just taken some time since they've been with me. I mean, I've had them for say almost close to a year at this point, and they haven't gotten to be able to parent raise, the babies since at all. So I'll let them keep trying. But I mean, pulling them the fry right now, it's not my biggest concern. Just because I mean, I know they're spawning as that might sound a little cool or whatever, but you know I know they spawn, and if I wanted to, I could just pull the entire slate and put that piece of slate in some methylene blue or whatever in a separate tank and hatch the babies out myself. Because obviously the male is fertilizing, so it's not, a question of are they fertile. It's more of a question of do I have the time to actually raise the babies, which,
Yeah.
like you working a full-time job and then having an 11-month-old baby is kind of tough to, spend a few hours down in the fish room, cleaning fry tanks and feeding, getting, your live baby brine shrimp hatcheries going and stuff like that. It's a lot of work. So pulling, especially a fish that can like lay 200 plus babies, that takes time. And unfortunately, that's not something that I have much of right now to be able to take care of all these fish.
Yeah, not with the new baby.
No, I
And
mean, granted, my son, he's very cool, calm, and collected. I'll bring him down here, and he loves looking at the fish and the bubbles and stuff like that. He'll laugh at all the, the bubbles coming from the sponge filters or whatever. But I can't really do much when I got an 11-month-old in one arm and trying to feed food in the other arm, and it's tough. So, I mean, like you, if they spawn and they survive, cool. I'm, it's like you said, survival of the fittest. I actually have one tank here where I've got some Bosemani fry growing out that
oh,
I had
okay.
pulled. I pulled the parents because I mean the male was 5, 6 inches. He was huge, and I pulled the parents. And that same day that I pulled the parents, I found some fry in here. So I just got them growing out in a tank right now with some albino cories, and they're doing good. I've seen at least 3 to 4 in there, and I call that a success. I'm not really doing much. I've been feeding decapsulated brine shrimp eggs, so I'll just sprinkle that in there. The cories will eat at it. The rainbow fry eat it, and if they survive, cool, they'll survive. I have no problem with keeping them, but to right now actually try and like pulling all the eggs and the fry and raising them is it's too time consuming for me right now. I mean, hopefully in the
Yeah.
future, you have time for it, but
Yeah, that's what I'm actually trying right now is I have a male and two female Bosmani rainbows. I just pulled the mops the other day and I've got them
Mhm.
in a bucket.
Okay.
And I looked through it and I couldn't necessarily see any eggs, but my eyesight's not the best either. So, and
Yeah, I mean, I was never able to see the eggs. I mean, again, my eyesight's not the greatest either, so I'm not sure if maybe I was just missing it. But I mean, it's the same thing with I have some dwarf rainbows, some parva rainbows that I mean, I'm looking at them right now, and they're going crazy. They're definitely spawning, but I can never see the eggs. I have never seen eggs. I pulled one time a media bag with some biological media in it, and I threw it in another tank to cycle another tank. And within a couple of days, I had fry, and I'm raising those fries now. I've got maybe 15 or so of the babies from those dwarf rainbows, and again, survival of the fittest. Really, I just I don't ever see any of the eggs. I don't know if again I'm missing them, or I'm just not looking in the right places, or what it may be. But if they spawn and they survive, I'm cool with that.
yeah, no, and like I said, I was checking the mops like every other day, and I couldn't really tell. It's if there's eggs on them. And it kind of it's a little bit frustrating because I'll watch videos where people are
Yeah,
breeding angel, and you can clearly see on the video these little
yeah,
round, like pearls.
yeah,
And but I look at my mops and I don't see anything in there, so I just decided to pull the mops. They've been in there a good couple of weeks, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna pull them up, separate them, and hopefully, like what you said, they just kind of start appearing. But I
yeah.
don't know how long it takes for those eggs to really hatch out. I just did that about 3 days ago. I've been checking it and I haven't seen anything swimming on the surface. So,
Yeah,
but the other problem,
you'd
sorry, go
probably
ahead.
start seeing fry by I think within like the 3 to 5 day range, you'll see some fry. If I remember correctly, that's really when I started seeing like for the dwarf rainbows. But you gotta really, really look because rainbow fry are significantly smaller than like for example, angel fry. Like they're almost
Mm.
microscopic. It's
Oh, okay.
extremely. It's very, very hard to see them. I really don't ever see them till I would say they're at least maybe like a couple days old.
Mm.
But again, that could just be because my eyesight's not the greatest.
Yeah, and well, my biggest concern is, and this is the downside of having snails in your aquarium, is that I think the snails are probably getting to the eggs before they're hatching.
Could be.
But that's because that's the only thing that I can see, especially like where I have the cherry barbs.
Hmm.
That one has a bunch of ram horn snails, and I'm thinking, what if they're dropping eggs, they're getting to them, and they've got to be eating them because it just doesn't make any sense because it's one male and about four females in there, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
got a ton of guppy grass, so much that it's almost hard for them to swim. I got to periodically go in there and push some of
hmm,
the guppy grass back to kind of give them a space where they could swim.
yeah,
And so I'm going now. The only logical explanation for them is that when they do drop eggs, the ramhorn snails are getting to them and eating them up. And I've
yeah.
slowly started setting traps in these, especially the ones that are egg scatters, to
Hmm.
try to get as much of the snails out of there and relocate them somewhere else where I have live bears where it's a non-issue,
Yeah,
uh, and see that. But I don't know. But again, all of this it boils down to having the time. Um,
yeah,
you know, supposedly my great master plan is that I'd probably have another 10 to 12 years before I start considering retirement,
hmm,
and I want to be able to have some experience by the time I do that and I retire. Then I can just fart around in the fish room all day and breed whatever it is that I want to breed. But
yeah,
at least I'll have a head start. Um, so we'll see. That's
yeah.
kind of like the long term plan, but we'll see what happens. Sometimes I come in here and I go, I want to get rid of all this stuff.
Oh man, I don't think you're a real fish keeper if you haven't had that moment at least a few times.
I'm like, do I really want to deal with this?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, well, the biggest issue for me is because I keep my stuff in the garage,
Mhm.
and I do live in Arizona, and it gets hot in here sometimes, and I don't want to be in here. Come around the summertime, and the winter not so much. The winter is not that big of a deal because I'll just put a space heater in the garage,
Mhm.
and it'll keep the temperature, where I want it. And I'm not. I quit a long time ago worrying about trying to keep everything at 78 or anything like that. I've come to
Yeah.
realize that fish will tolerate a lot more of a range of temperatures than what people are constantly preaching out there. I think that's good
Yeah.
reference as a beginner. But I've also come to the conclusion that because my tanks are quote unquote outside, um, the temperature change is gradual. It doesn't happen, overnight.
Yeah.
So the water temperature progressively gets either cooler or hotter depending on the time of the season of the year, and the fish will adapt. And so that was a big money saver because I was able to pull all my heaters out of my aquariums. And now I don't. The biggest fear with the heaters is when you get a runaway heater that just cook everything in there because it just
Yeah.
malfunctioned. And I don't have that concern anymore. And I do have, like, in the peak of the summer when in here, it'll get to about 100 degrees inside the
Oh
garage,
wow.
and the water temperatures will be in the high 80s, low 90s. And I do have some die off, but the die off that I have are usually fish that weren't very strong, anyways. They were already having some sort of health issues,
Yeah.
and but it's not like a massive die off. I'll have, like, 3 or 4 fish die in a tank, but I have a lot of live bears, so it's not uncommon. Live bears are, every so often will, once they reach a certain age, they'll just kind of die.
Yeah. They're
And
real short-lived fish.
so, but that's one of the things that by doing this that I've learned. But when it starts getting too hot in here, I really don't like being in here. I'll come in, I'll do water changes, I'll do whatever it is, then I go back inside the house.
Yeah.
Now, down there in your fish room, you're still running heaters in all your tanks, aren't you?
Yeah. Sorry, my dog wanted to get in the lap here. But yeah, so all of my tanks are with heaters. Just because my house is a split level house, so I don't necessarily have like a door to close off the downstairs from the upstairs. So if I were to try to keep downstairs at like 76, it would heat up the entire house
Mm.
essentially. And I don't want my upstairs being that warm. I
Yeah.
I like it on the colder side. So um I'm unfortunately running heaters in all of my tanks, but I try to run them at almost like the not the bare minimum that they need, but like warm enough where they're doing well. So like most of my tanks, like my goldfish tank, I've got, I think it's at like 68.
Oh yeah, goldfish will go a lot colder too.
Yeah. And then in the
They'll
summer
be
here,
fine.
like the space down here does stay relatively warm, so it's not like most of the heaters aren't even really kicking on because again, I've got them set maybe 74, something like that. I mean, my discus I've got set at 82 because I want my discus to stay on the warmer side. 180 here has I think it's set to like 81 or 82 also, but the heater barely kicks on. I mean, with such a
Mhm.
large volume of water, it
Yeah.
stays relatively warm. But everything else I've got set to, like the mid to low 70s, and the heaters barely kick on during summertime at least. Wintertime, it's different because I mean, here in New York, it can get freezing cold. So,
Yeah.
you know, things do that. The heaters are working a lot more, but it kind of balances out with, them not working in the summertime, really.
Have you ever seen how cold it gets in the basement? If just on regular winter, peak of
Yeah,
winter.
so before I had the fish room set up down here, I mean, I had a couple tanks down here, but before I actually really went setting up the racks and everything like that, it would get down to like the 50s down here if I
Oh,
didn't
okay, yeah.
kick the heaters on. Because I mean, I have baseboard heating down here, but I don't set it that warm just because we don't spend too much time down here. I mean, this is my fish room, and then it's like a little family room, but we don't really use it. We have the main living room upstairs. Um, so the heaters down here, they kick on maybe at like 64 degrees, I think it is. Like that's the
Mhm.
really the warmest it'll get down here in the wintertime. But now with the fish tanks down here, the humidity, the water and everything, it stays relatively comfortable down here. Like it'll be 68, 70, and the heaters aren't kicking on. That's just from residual, heat from all the tanks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what exactly they become like big old water radiator tanks, once you
Basically,
start warming
yeah.
them up. And that's what I kind of figured again, but we have mild winters. People laugh at me because I tell them, "Oh yeah, we got down into the 40s." They're like, "That's like springtime weather. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I know.
And but it allows me to be able to keep those tanks out here. The biggest problem I have is the heat. And
Yeah.
the work around that is I try to add air into my tanks, just to create some type of surface agitation. I do run
Yeah.
like shop fans, and I don't have lids. I can't have lids because I'll cook my fish.
Yeah.
So my biggest fight in here is water evaporation,
Hmm.
because I'm running air and it's hot and it evaporates a lot of the water, but it does allow to keep the tanks. Uh, I mean, obviously cooler than 100 degrees, but 89, 90 is not necessarily what people would call optimal temperatures. And
Yeah.
but I'm trying to save up money to get a one of those mini split units and set it down here.
Yeah.
I've The reality is because we are in Arizona, we run AC in the house 24/7. I'm
Mhm.
I was hesitant to put a AC unit in here because I'm going to go. That's going to be an extra bill. But I have a friend who did it to his garage, and he said he only noticed like a $20 increase on the light bill, and I was like, okay, I could. That's manageable.
Yeah.
So
$20 is
that's not
nothing
too
to deal with
bad.
that.
And then that allowed me to hang out here more in the summer too. And what I tell my wife, it's not like I'm going to keep it as cool as the house. If I can keep the temperature at 80, 82, then the tanks will be in the upper 70s because it's about a 2 to 4 degree difference from the ambient temperature and what the tanks will be. They'll
Yeah.
always be a little bit cooler. And then I'll just still continue to run my fan in here and it should be fine. But all
Yeah.
that stuff takes money. The biggest, I'm going to be honest with you, the biggest thing is not buying the air conditioning because I think I can get for about $800 one that has heating and cooling. It's trying to find the electrician to install it. That's where the big ticket item is. And
Yep.
I I know the basics, but not to connect to a breaker box. I don't want to. I'll be
Yeah.
touching the
No.
wrong wire, and that'll be the end of me. Or
Yeah.
blow
No.
out
That's good.
the whole block's power grid, and then all the neighbors will be mad at me.
Hmm. Yeah. That's the tough part. I tried some electrical work here in my house, and I gave myself a little shock with replacing one of the ceiling fans. I was like, you know what, let me call my uncle, because thankfully my uncle is an electrician. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need you to come over here and help me before I zap myself out of existence.
Yeah, because I've been trying to run some extra because I only have two outlets. I can't believe this garage only has two outlets.
Wow.
And I wanted to put like another box with four plugins, and you can do it relatively easy off of because well, actually three outlets because it's the one where the garage door opener is connected to, which is in the middle of the room,
Mm.
and I know that one probably runs to all the other three. And I just going to use that external conduit that comes in the coil stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen it's relatively easy if you can tie into one of the outlet boxes, but the problem is again, I got to run that to the breaker box. And I don't mess around with breaker boxes.
Yeah.
That's way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, you and I both. I'm a, I'm a pretty handy guy. Like I'm fine with doing, you know, carpentry stuff and plumbing and this and that. But electrical work is where I kind of draw the line. Just because I mean I don't really, I don't like to play with electricity too much. It's like you said, I'm past out of my comfort zone.
This is crazy. I was trying to wonder if anybody was watching because I wasn't seeing any of the comments come up, and then all of a sudden they all started popping in. Let me take a little bit of a minute here real quick to kind of acknowledge some of the people that have dropped in. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us this morning. The Bud Files, thank you for coming in. Fishcapades Mal, thank you for coming in. Has the quality of the stream improved? I know we were having a lot of issues earlier and I wasn't seeing any of the comments. All of a sudden everything popped up. So if you guys can just kind of give me a heads up if we're still dealing with that issue. It seems like it's kind of worked itself out, but I don't know. Kim Go, thank you for dropping in. Drunken Chef, hey buddy, thanks for coming in. Lake Missoula Aquatics and Plants, Ben, thank you for joining us. Let me see. Big Steve, thank you for coming in. Fathom Aquatics, thank you for joining us. Wally's Freshwater Aquatics, thank you for coming in. Pepland Aquatics, thank you. Pleasure to meet you. They're kind of no dechlorinator. Let's see, what is Kimco asking? No dechlorinator or buffer or ferts. No root tabs, no gravel. Hits ever, no water changes ever, no need to do nothing. It's 100% mastered, most professional because it's simple sand cap. Okay. I'm wondering if that was a response to somebody's comment. Mike, MNC Aquatics, thanks for coming in. Cecil Mayberry, thank you for joining us. Let's see who else. Oh, Ross Baltimore Aquatics, thank you. And let's see if I'm all caught up. Oh, Joy of Fish Keeping. He's close to you. He's Jose, are you in New York proper or New Jersey? He's up in your stomping area. Well, okay. Here's the thing. I don't know if you guys do this, but every time somebody says they're from New York, and I'm talking about most people in the West Coast, New York means New York City to us. And I know that's not true because New York is more than New York City.
Yeah.
And when I was in the service, I remember I would tell people I was from California, and there was either two places that I was from, either LA, which, big Hollywood, or the Bay Area. And I would always laugh because it's like, no, California's got a lot more cities in it. And I understand because I kind of almost, unconsciously default to that. I go, oh, you're from New York. Oh, New York City. But no, New York is a big state, and there's a lot more other cities outside of New York City.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty close to the city. I'm roughly 45 minutes to an hour away from New York City, and with my job, I work in New York City, so I'm there every day. So, it's funny, oh, you're from New York. Oh, New York City, like and immediately the Big Apple, Times Square, all of this stuff. But there's, a lot of small little towns and like rural areas around here. I think my area is not too rural. I'm pretty, close to almost everything. Roughly, I think it's like 2 hours from Albany. Albany's 2 hours north from me. But once you start getting into like, what it's like Western New York, you could that's you're talking 6+ hours. That's a trip. That's
Mm.
much further than I'd ever go.
Well, the thing that's interesting to me, and again, this goes to my lack of understanding. You hear the states like New York and New Jersey, and you're thinking they're all like metro areas, right? You don't think. I kind of equate it to like LA. I'm thinking everything is construction, buildings. Not very much greenery. But come to find out, the northern part of New Jersey is mostly forest, and I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I didn't know that, and I was listening to somebody where they were talking about brown bears being an issue up in northern New Jersey, and I was like, oh, okay, that really changes my perspective of what New Jersey really is. It's
Yeah.
obviously a lot more forest and greenery up there, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's funny because you watch television and you make these assumptions of places that you're only seeing a little scope of what the entire geographical area is.
Hmm.
It's causes it's hot
So, yeah.
because of all the
That's
hot air that Jorge talks. Yeah, it is. That's why the temperature gets hotter in here. Hey, thank you, Cizo. Thanks for the $2 super chat. Let me see. Vanoski, thank you for coming in. Yeah, wait, what did I miss? What did I miss? Did I miss anybody up here? Oh, Fishing Tanks. Thank you for joining us. I got so caught up in talking about New York that I forgot to. I'm trying to make sure that I haven't missed anybody. Born in East LA. Not East LA. I was actually born in South Central LA. But yeah, you're not wrong. I was born in Los Angeles. Let's see. Okay, now New York City, Bronx. Lived an hour northwest of the city for 30 years. This is Jose from Joy of Fish Keeping.
okay.
He works in New York City for the last 50 years. Yeah, I know he's he's not in the metro area. Wait, because I know he visits a lot of there's a fish store in particular, and I guess in New Jersey that he likes to go visit. I think they sell discus because he keeps a lot of discus fish.
That might be
So
discus madness. Yeah,
yeah,
they're.
it says, Deal, what county or town are you in?
I'm in Westchester County.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he's kind of close in there. You ought to check out his channel. He's got some really. He lives in I guess it's like an apartment. Discus Madness. That's what he said.
Yeah, discus madness. I've been there plenty of times. A lot of nice fish in there.
And but for the small space that he has, I'm impressed how many aquariums he's got in there, and they all look really, really nice.
Yeah, man. You got to make do with what you got.
So I've always been impressed by his fish tanks. Very pristine. He does a whole different type of aquascaping. I mean, not aquascaping, but fish keeping that I do. I was born
Okay.
in Fathom Aquatics. I didn't know he was from. I always thought he was from Georgia, but I guess not. Let's see. Jose says that he lived in New City and Harrisman for 30 years between the two.
Okay.
So yeah, he's another fish keeper that's out there in your area. I mean, I'm assuming that he's in close proximity. It's always nice when you find other hobbyists that are in close proximity to you, because I don't know, then it's somebody else that's kind of in the area that you can share the hobby with. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I'm
why,
always
like
interested.
I've been super thankful since finding like the fish clubs that I'm in, because before then I really thought like, it's as crazy as it sounds. I was like, am I the only person in my area that has fish tanks? So like finding the clubs was kind of a relief. It's like, okay, I'm not the only crazy fish guy, a fish person that's got 20 plus tanks and all these different fish, and it's almost made me feel a little bit normal in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the thing though with this hobby, unless I don't know in your situation, but like in my case, it's kind of weird that I'm obsessed with aquariums because I didn't grow up with aquariums in my household, but I've always been attracted to them ever since I was a kid. Um, oh, that's what he says that Westchester is just minutes away from him.
Oh,
So
nice.
he's
Yeah.
and so it's one of those things where I don't know. I guess it was just something that it must be the same thing that I'm still attracted to them now because um, it's a place where I can come and get away from just the daily grind stuff.
Yeah.
Just trying to zone out and not think about anything else. And I think that's always had that calming effect. And plus, I always find it really interesting. I can sit here and just watch. That's one of my favorite things about the fish room is just
Yeah.
watch the fish. I can turn off all the lights, turn on the ones that I want, and just sit here and observe for hours. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny because one of the things that I'll do is I enjoy smoking cigars, but I used to go sit in the patio in the back and just kind of listen to something. Now I'll come in the fish room and I'll sit because it's in my garage. I'll open up the garage door and the side door, turn on the fans, and I can sit here for hours, just kind of
Yeah.
just quiet and watching. So
That's legit me. I'll bring my son down here and we'll sit in this very chair and I'll just move it all throughout the fish room. I'll face the 180 and we'll just sit here and just watch. And again, he just likes looking at the bubbles and the fish moving around. And me, it's just it's therapeutic. I can sit down here, just get away from all the full days worth of work and stress and this and that. I come down here and I just watch and see the fish interact and I'll see fish pop out that I forgot I had. They're all hiding in moss and here, like I've got my rope fish in here. They'll come out and randomly I'll see one like dart by. I'm like, oh, I forgot I had these guys. It's just it very relaxing to be able to come down here and just listen to the bubbles and nothing else.
hmm. I was going to ask you, are you set up in a way that you can go mobile?
Yeah, I have my phone is here on my tripod.
Would you mind walking us around and showing us some of your tanks? Is that
Yeah,
something that you can do?
of course.
I'm
Let's.
pretty sure I've seen your videos, but some of these people that probably haven't found your channel, they would like to see what you're doing in the
Yeah,
fish
of
room.
course. Let me see here. How do I flip the camera? That's the one thing.
Oh, okay. Go down. There. Go to the gear wheel where,
Let's see.
and then you'll have the option for the camera. Click
Camera.
on the
There we
camera, and then
go.
it'll ask you if you want to use the
Yes, there we go.
forward facing, back facing.
Okay.
There.
How we looking here? We good?
There we go. Okay, I'm gonna get you on the big screen. Hold on, give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Switch your side. Switch my side. There we go.
Alrighty. So this is kind of like my little
Can
breeding
you hear
rack
me?
here.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
can hear you. But yeah, this is a small little part of the breeding rack here. I've got there's koi angel in the black tank here. This is a pair of discus that the male's not doing too hot. But then I've got like down here. This tank here is the parva rainbows. I've got some Habrosis cories. These are some silver tip tetras I was trying to breed, but nothing really came of it. Um, I've got some apistos in here, and then like those. That's just the smaller part of the things, and then this is the kind of main bulk of everything. There's 620
Now,
longs. What is it?
one of the
440
things that I've always
breeders.
been curious because
Sorry, here. Go ahead.
oh no, did you already have a plan when you were going to set up your fish room? Because it seemed like it was well thought out. I mean, it's you every video that I saw, you knew that you wanted to set up air loop and all this stuff. Was that something that you had already planned, or you were just kind of
So
working on the go?
it was kind of like different iterations from either my first fish room at my parents' house to then watching everybody else's fish rooms on YouTube on with how they did certain things. So like when I bought this house, I kind of realized like this space was good for a fish room. And I did plan out in a sense, where I wanted certain things. Like obviously I've got my linear piston air pump in the top corner there. So I do have the air loop going across, this entire wall. So that one air pump is pumping all the air to these tanks. Um, and I went through kind of just different, like, what do I want to keep kind of things, what can I keep. I wanted some smaller tanks, which like for me the 20 longs are on smaller tanks because you can keep
Hmm.
smaller fish in there and stuff, but then I still wanted some of the bigger tanks for, I knew I wanted to breed, so I knew I needed more space for grow outs and stuff like that. So I knew I would need these larger tanks for growing out 200 angelfish or something like that. So as gone by, I've kind of realized I don't want to breed too many of the larger fish, like the angelfish here in this tank. I haven't pulled the babies just because I don't really want to have 150 or whatever it may be fish from them. So I'm starting to gravitate more towards like the 20 long tanks. Like I love the footprint and like the water volume that they hold. So most of the fish that I am interested in keeping, I can keep in these smaller tanks. So like this kind of what I'm gravitating to more towards now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I mean, obviously my 180 here. This my baby
Yeah.
here. This tank, it's definitely my favorite tank. First tank I've ever had with the sump, and I love sumps now. Like this is I'm so for sumps. I'm actually hoping to convert my 75 to a sump. Hope hopefully soon. They're so easy, and you know you're maximizing your water volume. I've got an extra like what 30-40 gallons of water to the 180, so we're talking a 210 to 20 gallon system, which and I almost never do water changes on this thing either, so it's just kind of on you know autopilot now.
What do you have in the 180? I see the Ultimate Angels, but
Yeah,
what's
so I've
is
got
that electric blue
it's
Acara in there?
yes, there's one big electric blue Acara here. He's relatively old, but big guy. I've got 10 Ultims. These tetras here, they're Priscilla tetras. So I've got, I think it's like
Yes.
40 or 45 of them in here.
Wow.
There's these two, I
Oh wow.
believe they are marble whiptail catfish. There's a group of, I think it's, you can see back there, kind of in the corner there, some bronze cories. And actually, there's my little rope fish's head sticking out right there in the rocks. He kind of just went right back in. There should be another one somewhere around here. Yeah, you kind of see his body in between the rocks here. But that's it for now. I do have plans on adding some more South American type of fish here. I know the rope fish aren't South American; they're African. But I had to have them. They were too cool not to keep.
Yeah, it's a really nice and you did the aquascape on that, right?
Yes, I've got videos on the entire process for this whole tank. The aquascape, the get getting the tank set up and everything. Like it's all I recorded all of that just because I mean again keeping it's like like a time stake for myself. I get to go back and look at how things started and where it's progressed to. So all of it is all recorded and it's up on my channel if anybody wants to take a look.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always uh hey, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of really been impressed about your fish room is how neat and organized you have everything down there.
No, that
Especially when it comes
they'll let the
to
camera
to
work
the
fool you.
but just looking at your fish rack and the way they look, it's kind of like it's a lot neater and more organized than what I have. That's what my wife keeps trying to push me to do. That she wants it to be like my hangout spot in here. If she goes, oh, you need to do this and put plants and paint here and paint that, and she's not wrong,
Yeah.
but it's just. But at the same time, she wants me to store all the Christmas stuff and everything in here, and it's kind of like I kind of give her
Yep.
side eye, kind of like, yeah, you want me to do all this, but yet I got to keep all this junk in here.
Yep. Yep. That's why I'm good. the garage is kind of where we keep a lot of our storage stuff, and then I've got a small little storage area under my staircase that the Christmas stuff and all that stuff goes into. So thankfully, this little half of the basement is, my dedicated little space. I do try to keep things as neat as possible, but I mean, like, then there's stuff like this. So, the stuff definitely adds up. Having this many tanks, I didn't realize how much things I would need for all of these tanks, and food for all the fish. I mean, it added up a lot faster than anticipated. So I have to try to keep things somewhat organized, or else I'm gonna have to deal with, my wife yelling at me with all the mess I've got.
Now, let me ask you something. Do you have a drain down there, or how are you moving all this?
No, no drain. So I have it's one of the thicker diameter, like the pool vacuum hoses that I use, and it'll basically go here into these little, I've got the bulkheads with the ball valves, and I just drain that straight out the back door. That's where everything goes. I water my lawn essentially every other week with fish water, so that's where all that water's going. Then I've got my fill line in
Oh,
my
okay.
laundry room.
Man, it's starting to get glitch up on my end. Are you guys seeing that? Are you guys getting glitchy too?
Yeah, it was getting a
I don't know what's going on with
little glitchy there. I don't
my
know if it's
signal.
me.
Yeah, it's probably me. I don't. That's the only problem with live streaming in the fish room. I've come to find out somebody had mentioned that depending on which of the frequencies you use from your router,
Hmm.
there's one that interferes with the water. The water will interfere with that signal, and I think it's
Oh,
that
really?
2.4 hertz is not
Wow.
good for the fish room.
I did
Yeah,
not know
so
that.
I might have to invest money on a booster and set up a booster inside my fish room to be able to not have this issue because it seems
Yeah.
like it's becoming more and more often. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl just dropped your link for your channel.
Oh, thank you.
Let me see. I'm going to try to pin that up to the top of the chat so that anybody that wants to um, check it out, they can, especially when they watch the replay. Yeah. So, do you have any other plans for your fish room? Are you looking to expand more, or is this kind of like you've reached your limit?
So I mean, like I had mentioned before, I am gravitating more towards the 20 long. So eventually, I do want to maybe get rid of a pair, like a section here on the 40 rack, and then extend the 20s. But as to taking over the entire basement, I don't think I'm allowed to. I have maxed out my ability to have more tanks. I mean, I originally wanted to put something like right here and kind of caddy corner or corner off this section, but again, with an 11-month-old son, I want to give him some space to be able to run around and play. So I'm limited to these three little walls that I have here, and I'm fine with that. I'll take it.
Now, those racks are racks that you build, right? They're not
Yes. So
the
all the
gladiator
racks.
stands.
No, everything, the 20 gallons, the 40s, and even the small one are all DIY. I built those myself. The only thing that came that, built pre-built was the stand for the 180, but everything else down here is done by me. I mean, the lighting system myself, the air system, the racks, everything was all DIY. Like I mentioned before, I'm pretty handy, so doing this stuff isn't hard for me. I mean, I work in carpentry, so it's kind of my job to be able to build things.
Now, the 180, if I remember correctly, that came from one of your family members.
No. So this 180 I bought off of Facebook Marketplace actually is
It was
gentleman.
just your family that helped you put it up there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it was.
My dad came with me to pick up the tank, and then when I brought it home, it was, um myself, my dad, my sister and her boyfriend. We moved it in to the garage, And then I got a couple of buddies of mine to help me actually lift this tank up onto the stand. Because I mean, I don't know if you guys can really tell, but the stand is close to. I'm looks like it's maybe I think like 3 feet at least. So lifting a 180-gallon tank 3 feet wasn't really easy. I mean, empty this tank weighs like I think it's like 400 pounds if I'm not mistaken. So it was definitely something that I needed some muscle for.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of went away from. I had at one point I had like a 300 gallon that I was given,
Oh,
and I never set it up just because trying to move it by yourself is nearly impossible. I'm not. I
yeah,
maybe when I was younger I might have been able to lift it. Not now that I'm older. I know better.
yeah. No, I
I
mean,
would have
even
lifted with consequences.
I wouldn't even try to lift this thing by myself. Granted, I did move it into my basement here by myself, but I had it on a dolly, so I was able to roll it around essentially. I didn't really have to do much heavy lifting for it, but to get this
Now,
thing
did
up
you have to
onto.
get that down the stairs, or were you able to use the back door and get it in?
No, thankfully I was able to just bring it in straight through my garage door. So that's the door through my garage. Everything just came straight in here. So I no stairs or anything like that. I wanted to originally set this up in my upstairs area, but one, stairs, and two, I didn't know how the floors would be able to handle,
Oh,
like,
the weight.
this is 8 pounds per gallon. This is 180. We're talking good amount of weight. So I just decided to keep it down here. My subfloors are concrete, so I don't have to worry about anything really.
Yeah, but that's definitely your showstopper there. It's a
Oh
really
yeah,
really nice aquarium.
this is my baby. Thank you. This is definitely my pride and joy here. I mean, granted, I love all my other tanks, but none of them are really scaped. At least these ones down here. My 75 is scaped, but the plants just grow so fast in that tank that maintenance on it is a pain.
Now I noticed that you don't have an issue with duckweed. Is that something you intentionally did, or is it the goldfish that are kind of like your duckweed team?
A little bit of both. So the duckweed is 100%. I don't want it in the fish room at all. So anytime I get anything, I'll put it in, one of these buckets here and I will inspect for duckweed. If I do have any, it will go to the goldfish. I mean, the
Yeah,
goldfish, obviously, they'll pretty much eat anything. So duckweed is one thing I've thankfully been able to keep out of all of my tanks since really starting the fish room, this iteration of the fish room, at least. In my parents' house, I did have some duckweed, but I mean, I don't want duckweed in any of my tanks. It's such a pain. I don't like it.
yeah. It's a love hate relationship with me and duckweed.
Yeah, I mean it's great for obviously like you know sucking up extra nutrients or nitrates and stuff. But I mean when you've got duckweed growing and it's an inch thick on the top of your tank, it's just
Yeah.
not fun. Not fun.
Now, the ultims you have, is that something you're going to try to breed, or they're just going to be strictly just your hobby
That
fish?
would be, like the end goal kind of with these guys. I definitely would like to breed them. The four original ones that I have in here, which are some of these larger guys here, they're definitely of breeding size. I just don't know how simple or complicated it's going to be. But I mean, it's definitely something I would love to happen. Like if these guys would spawn, I'd probably just jump through the roof.
Yeah. There's a couple of guys that I know that well, one of them owns a fish store and he's in Vegas,
Mhm.
and they actually have a warehouse where they're just breeding the daylights out of the ultims.
Wow.
I'll pass you his information. Maybe give him chat him up, and he might be able to give you some of the ins and outs of that. And then
Yeah,
there's another
please.
channel. I think it's Shoreline Aquatics.
Hmm.
He was on a friend of mine's live stream, and I'm trying to get him on to come on here too and do an interview with me. But he's out in the Pacific Northwest, and he's also having a lot of success breeding Ultim Angels.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I would love
So
to get these guys going, but I've heard they're not the easiest to
Well,
spawn. So
that's the interesting part, because from talking to them, it's not that difficult. That's the thing. And I always assumed or heard that Ultimate Angels were even harder than Discus. Oh, there he
yeah,
is, Funk. Funk just showed up. Aquafunk is the one that had Shoreline Aquatics on his live stream,
okay,
and
cool.
so he's the one. I think he's planning on having him back just to be able to talk more about breeding ultims. Aquafunk is another guy that I know that has bred all sorts of angelfish. That was kind of his thing for a while.
Yeah, no, there's a guy over in I believe it's Philadelphia on Instagram. I believe it's Angel Scalar Angel, something like that, where he's basically set up like a whole fish store with like a whole bunch of 75-gallon tanks, and he's he breeds the snot out of autumn angels and a whole bunch of other wild angels and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. And I mean, like you said, it doesn't seem like it's too hard, but then I hear other people say that it's pretty difficult to get these guys going too. So I don't really know.
Yeah, like I said, but it's always nice to be able to have the insight from people that have successfully done it,
Yeah,
because they'll
100%.
probably give you some tips. And like I just haven't dug into it too much because I'm not really pursuing that. But I know since you have them, it might be something that you might be interested in doing.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about earlier in the stream, it's kind of survival of the fittest. So if they do spawn, that would be great, and I would love if they could survive in the tank. But I mean, the odds of that happening in a community tank are probably very low. So if it were to happen, I mean, I wouldn't. I would consider pulling eggs and trying to, raise them myself. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that would
you know,
definitely be one that you might want to pull eggs out because I'm
yeah.
pretty sure those would sell well.
Oh yeah,
Um, and even to the point where you could probably, even if that's the only fish you ship for sales, I think you would do relatively well because there seems to be a big market, especially for ultimate angels,
yeah.
specifically ultimate angels.
And I don't know if it's maybe just me that I haven't, really dug into it too much, but Autumn Angels seem to grow in popularity a lot more recently, at least from what I have noticed. Maybe since I've just been, looking out for them now. But like now is when I'm noticing a lot more angels, the Autumn Angels being, sought after more. Again, it could just be because I didn't really know what they were before and I wasn't looking out for them. But I've definitely been seeing, more people keeping them and like searching for them and stuff like that. So I mean, if they spawned, I would love to raise them.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were so expensive
Yeah,
that most people, although they might like them, they kind of stayed away from them because of the cost. But now, with successfully being tank bred and stuff like that, I think that's why there's a resurgence in popularity is because they're a little bit more accessible.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's
and
true.
so it's kind of, and I think that's what it really is. You see, that's what Funk's saying. You need to check out Shoreline. We were just talking about that, Funk. That you had him on, and
Yeah, I would definitely, if they did spawn, I mean, again, I'd be ecstatic. That's the guy that I got my four adults from. He's the one that was telling me, how that they're on the more difficult side to spawn. And this gentleman, he's has spawned zebra plecos and L236s, L138Bs and stuff. Like he's spawned some pretty high end, more difficult to raise, L number plecos. And he was saying that these guys are like one of the hardest fish to spawn. So I was like, okay, if this guy is telling me that, it's there's got to be some truth to it. But then, I mean, like I said, I'm seeing, the guy on Instagram, Angel Scalar, he's just breeding these guys like there's no tomorrow.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's one of those things where, oh, thanks for dropping the link, Funk. Yeah, it's again, it's like everything else. Once you kind of crack the code, then it just becomes a little bit more easier to do. But again, both of these guys, the ones that I was talking about, have really focused on trying to figure these out. So that's all they really do. So once you kind of decide that that's what you want to do and you focus all your energy on it, it becomes a little bit easier, I guess. If you're
Yeah.
trying to do multiple species, well, that kind of takes your attention in different directions. And I could see if he's trying to breed difficult to breed plecos, while I'm assuming a lot of his attention is going to that,
Yeah.
that he doesn't have a whole lot of time to really focus on the ultims.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is definitely, it would definitely be, kind of like a miracle if I could get these guys to spawn, especially in the tank. That I like we were saying before, I want to try to keep things, as simple as possible right now because of time. So if they spawn, great. If they don't, I'm fine with it too. Like these, it's kind of just this is more my display tank as opposed to like a breeding, not necessarily profit, but just a breeding tank. Like this is just a display tank. I want to keep the fish that I like in here, and if they spawn, great. If not, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know. There's just something about those fish that is just, it just draws your attention. It's an
Yeah,
angelfish, at the end of the day, it's an angelfish, but there's just something about them that makes them stand out from everything else. And it's, yeah, the size is part of it, but I don't know. It's weird. I know when I go to fish stores, if I see them out of, the corner of my eye, they just pull you. And
yeah,
kind
and
of like
it's
the same
not
thing
like
with discus.
yeah, and it's not like these guys are super like flashy, like with crazy colors or anything. Like they're a wild type fish with basic colors, but under certain lighting, these guys get a blue sheen and red
Mhm.
speckling and like a little bit of a yellow hue. Like it's just incredible how crazy these guys can look, but then also how muted they can get too.
Yeah.
And it could be the fins too. I don't know. Their fins I feel like are definitely longer than like your common Scalara angel fins. So that could be part of it too. But I don't know. These guys are definitely like my favorite, my all time favorite angelfish.
Yeah, they're really nice. They want you to get a little bit closer so they can take a look at them.
Oh yeah, of course. So like we've got this is some sorry about the glare, but this is the biggest one that I have in the tank. Let me see if I can stand in front of them so you guys don't get the yeah. There we go. These guys.
What are these at right now? They're what, about 5, 6 inches or bigger?
Oh, way bigger. This big one right here, I would say close to 10 inches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're the big ones that I have in here are large. Like this guy here is one of the big ones. There's this one, this guy right here, and then there's one more hiding in the back over here. And
Oh
then
yeah.
my smaller ones here, like you can kind of see the size difference between the large and the smaller ones, but this here is the smallest of them, and it's probably like the body size, like half dollar.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, these bigger ones are significantly larger than regular angels. Like I mean, from like I said, from the top dorsal to the bottom fin, it's easily 10 inches.
Now, you didn't get these all at the same size, did you?
No, so the four larger ones, they came as they came together. I got those from
Okay.
the gentleman that was telling me about the breeding the L number plecos and stuff like that. The other six I had originally got, so I originally bought eight of them from a friend of mine in Queens. He imported these guys, so they are wild caught, and they were tiny. Like I'm talking the body size, maybe like in between like a nickel and a quarter. Like they were very small. I did unfortunately lose the two smallest. It was actually a couple months after I had them. I don't know what happened, but these last six have been doing great, and I've seen significant growth since putting them into the 180 compared to them being in the 40 gallon that I had them in.
Yeah, they're definitely the showstoppers in that tank.
Yeah, yeah, these guys, and again, I mean, they're not, like the most brightly colored fish or anything, but it's like you said, something about them just you gravitate towards them.
Now, are you purposely keeping tannins in that water, or is it just leaching from the wood?
That's leaching from this driftwood. These pieces have been leaching for a really long time, and I've been trying to get it to clear up a little bit. But I mean, if it, yeah, I'm fine with it
I was
for
gonna say,
now.
I kind of like the fact that it has a little bit of tannins. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it was a lot worse when I first set it up. Like that first and that initial kind of leaching that they did was significant. But after a few water changes, it's kind of started to stabilize. I think most of the tannins are out of it now. I mean, granted, these pieces of driftwood are huge. You know, the one over here, this guy, it goes from like the far end to the tank, and they're sticking up out the top. The thing's, I think it's like 4 feet long.
Now, did you buy those, or you go out and collect those?
I bought these off of somebody else on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of stuff I get is on Facebook Marketplace. You know, you can
Yeah,
find some gems on there.
yeah. I'm not the only one that thinks that the tannin is it's a slight, at least in camera, it's coming in like a slight tint, which really I think really makes those fish stand out. And I'm not the only one that seems to think that because
Yeah.
outside in aquatics seems to see. That's what I was asking you, because if you purposely did that, I was like, man, you got the right amount of tannins in there.
No, I wish I could take the credit for that, but unfortunately, that's just the wood doing what the wood does. But the tannins do. I feel like they do help kind of bring out some of their colors a bit.
Yeah, I think it does. It does add to the color element of some of these, because you get to pick up a little bit more of the red hues within the
Yeah,
fish.
yeah, definitely. Very easily one of this has got it like I've said it before. This is my favorite tank, honestly, that I've ever set up. So I let this thing kind of just go. I don't really do water changes on it very often now. Um, I think since I've set it up, I've done maybe 3 water changes. That initial one to remove most of the tannins, but I mean the stocking in the tank, it's not heavily stocked,
No.
and it is. I mean, like I mentioned, it's close to a 210-gallon system, so there's definitely water in there for it to be any nitrates or anything kind of just get absorbed pretty quick. Um, and I don't even have many plants in here, honestly. It's just a bunch of Anubias, Java ferns. Like I've got some different narrow leaves and regular and all these different types of rhizome plants. I've got some bulbitis here in the middle, kind of growing over there. But the stocking that I have in this tank right now really allows me to not have to do water changes on anything really. Only thing I'll really do is top off the sump where the return pumps are. That's just because obviously evaporation down here can get a little crazy during the summertime. So every couple of days I'm topping off the sump, but that's pretty much it. This tank has thankfully been on cruise control for a few weeks now.
Yeah, I was gonna say the stock. To me, in my opinion, I love the stocking level because it's not understocked and it's not overstocked, and I
Yeah,
think you have the right balance of
yeah,
with the angelfish, the Priscilla tetras in there, and then the cool bottom feeders. I love the fact that you went non-traditional with the bottom feeders, and
yeah.
so I wouldn't mess with it. In my personal opinion, I think it's perfect the way it is.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I completely forgot about this little guy. But like, this is what I was talking about, having fish pop out. This is like some
Oh
wild type of a pisto.
yeah, it's a no, not is that a pistol? I thought it was a Nakara.
No, this is a little epistogramma, some type of
Oh, okay.
epistogramma, but I mean, it's maybe like 2 inches, and I don't know what kind of epistogramma it is. When I had gotten it, I actually got it with the baby ultims, the smaller ones that are in here. This guy was a little stowaway in the bag. My buddy
Oh,
didn't even realize that he scooped it up. And I asked him what type it was. He was like, I have no idea. Like, I didn't even know the guy was in there. So this
if
is,
if
I
you
mean, it's,
if you can get a close up of them, I'm sure somebody in the chat is going to be able to identify what it is.
yeah, it's some type of wild epistogramma. I mean, clearly it doesn't have much color. It's got a little bit of red in like its dorsal fin and stuff like that, and
I see
some
some
blue.
yellow on them.
Yeah, it's got some yellow, some blue speckling and stuff, and then like that black dot towards the back of its on its at the base of its tail. But I don't really know what kind it is. He's a cool little guy, so I just figured, hey, let me toss him in here, just see what happens. And he's been thriving in here with the Ultims.
Does he hang out in that rock cave that you have in there?
Surprisingly, no. I've got a couple of these little rock caves scattered throughout. So like, there's one here, this one here, and then there's one. This one's actually one that's kind of gotten buried, but I maybe it's just I don't know if it's the stocking level or the scape or anything, but everything in here is extremely comfortable. They don't hide. Like the only fish that kind of really hide are the ropefish, and even then, like they don't really hide out of fear. Like you can again, you can see the little guy poking his head out right here,
Oh, he's
and
tiny.
well, that's just his head. He's
Oh,
probably close to like I would say 9-10 inches long body wise.
oh, okay.
Yeah, these guys. I mean, they're my little water snakes. I call them that. They're my favorite little guys. I the two of them that I have in here, though, that get when feeding, they just go crazy. They're all over the place. But his little head pokes out in there, and he just hangs out right there. That's this one's favorite spot, and the other one hangs out somewhere else. I'm not too sure, but
Are
everything in here
ropefish
is.
ambush fish?
From my experience, no, they haven't
Okay.
ambushed any of my tetras and stuff in here or anything. I don't know if maybe it's just because they are a larger bodied tetra. I know I have fed them, like little guppies and stuff like that to try to get them to eat because the first one that I got, it didn't want to eat anything. So I did
Hmm.
unfortunately, have to feed it live food, which some people don't like to do, but I want to try to keep the fish alive.
Yeah.
So and I've got my live, but my guppies are over here breeding like crazy. So I did it. Now they'll eat vibrobites now. I'll throw a pinch of vibrobites in there, and they'll swim around. You'll see them just munching on it. And so I was able to get them, transition to pelleted types foods.
Yeah, it just makes it a lot easier when it comes to feeding. I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
because the problem with live food feeding is if you run out, then what do you do?
Exactly. And that was an issue I was having actually with the baby Olsums. So when I first got them, again, they're wild caught. So I was feeding them live blackworms. Fish store close to my parents' house. They were thankfully able to still get live blackworms even during like the whole COVID thing. I know a lot. It was real tough to get them, but I was feeding them live blackworms exclusively. That's all they wanted to eat. I would put any flakes, pellets, frozen. They wouldn't eat anything besides the live blackworms. And then I started mixing the live blackworms with some frozen bloodworms, and they would get a taste of that. And then once they got the bloodworms, I would throw in the vibrobites because it looks like the bloodworms, and thankfully I was able to get them to eat that. So now they're again pellet based. I don't have to worry about only feeding the live foods now, which is again great because I don't want to have to keep live foods alive all the time.
Yeah, I was doing that for a little bit when I was trying to really get the angelfish, get them past that wiggler stage. I
Mhm.
had to resort to the live foods, but it's another thing you have to maintain. That's the problem.
Yeah,
It's something you have to do. Main if you don't, then they get all kinds of mites in them, and it's just oh man. And then the
yeah.
smell.
Oh yeah,
Sometimes you
definitely.
got smell associated because I was doing like micro worms and white worms, all that stuff that has to have like a media that I don't know if it's decaying, but you're using like oatmeal and milk and or
Yeah,
water or whatever, and it's just it starts fermenting and you get all these weird smells. Um, so yeah, it's just it, and then having a hot room with those kind of smells, it kind of became a point where it's like, yeah, no, I'm not enjoying having
yeah,
to come in here and smell like something's dying.
yeah. That was the biggest thing for me. With that drew me away from like the microworms and all those like vinegar, not the vinegar, it was white worms and Walter worms and all that. It's just the smell that came from either like the oatmeal or the mashed potatoes, whatever it is that you had to use. That
Yeah,
after a while, that smell just really it was rancid. I could not deal with it. So I'm super glad I was able to get these guys onto Viral bites and other pellet foods and stuff. So it's
Yeah, and I was in a situation where I couldn't keep them inside the house where it's a little bit cooler because my wife was like, "No, that ain't happening."
yeah.
Uh, I had a refrigerator in here, but it was too cold, so I was kind of like, "Shit, what do I do with them?" And
Yeah,
and they were
I ended
good
up.
until it got too warm, and then they got all sorts of other. I had maggots in mine. And I was like, "Oh, that's
Oh
disgusting."
man,
I threw everything out.
yeah, I would toss that immediately.
I was like, "No." I'll tell you what though, the bettas really like the maggot worms, but I just couldn't deal with it. It was too disgusting.
Yeah, no, that's more than I would want to do to try to feed the
Yeah,
fish. I'm cool with letting them get some pellets, and I mean, the local fisher that I go to, they still do get the live blackworm. So every now and then, like I'll get it as like a treat for these guys and stuff like that. Um, but I mean, I as as it comes to with the live foods, I feel like the blackworms is the easiest one kind of to keep, just because all you got to do is keep them in some water and keep the little container in the refrigerator.
break them
So
up periodically to get more.
yeah, I actually had this small little five is it a 5 gallon? Yeah, 5 gallon tank.
Yeah,
I had a colony going in there of the live blackworms where I was just they were breeding in there. Unfortunately the colony did crash on me, so I never set it back up, but I would like to eventually. I mean, it's probably one of the easier live foods that you can do because I mean, like all I had did put in there was some substrate and a sponge filter. There was no heater, no light, nothing. I would feed
yeah,
them every day. I'd drop a couple pellets of food or whatever in there. They would eat it. I'd take my tongs and just turn the gravel around or the sand around just to break them up a bit, and they were breeding in there.
yeah. That's what I keep hearing. They're pretty. The It seems like the most difficult thing is being able to get a hold of them, and then
Yeah,
the other thing is you really have to be careful to clean them out because they'll come with a lot of leeches and stuff like that. But once you get
yeah.
that done, it's pretty much done. It's you don't have to. It's kind of set it and forget it. There's
Yeah, I that was my
there
big thing too with the blackworms, the leeches. I would sit there and sift through them and pick out all the leeches, and then I would let it sit for like again like an hour or two. I'd come back and I'd continue to pick out any leeches that I could find.
Yeah, you don't want those in your fish tank because they're hard to
No,
get rid of. I had to deal with that a while back, but
oh man,
thank God for loaches because they wiped them out. I'm a true believer in yo-yo loaches to control not only snail populations but planaria and the nasty leeches
yeah,
that you get sometimes. Those guys they make quick work of all that stuff.
yeah. I had some zebra loaches that I would keep for the when I had Malaysian trumpet snails.
Yeah.
And they did a good job on those guys. But then I ended up just getting assassin snails, and the assassin snails within a couple months took care of everything for me.
Yeah, I recently got a three of them, and I've been rotating them in through my tanks. And I'm surprised how quickly they can do how efficient they are,
Oh yeah,
and
they're
reducing the population. I haven't had them where they because somebody was telling me that you're basically replacing one problem for another because the assassin snails will start reproducing. Um, but it so far hasn't been an issue for me, at least that I can see.
yeah. But even then, with the assassin snails, that's something that people were telling me too. You're getting rid of one snail to add in another snail, but the assassin snails I've noticed breed much slower because they're not laying those egg sacs with so many eggs in it. It's maybe an egg or two here and there that I've seen, and then when you do see them, I don't mind looking at the assassin snails. They're nice little snails, and then you can sell them to other people or give them to other people that have, pest snail problems. Like I haven't found that the assassin snails are picky with the type of snails that they will eat. I've had them eat Malaysian trumpet snails, bladder snails, pond snails, ram's horns. That I've even had a group of them hunt down and kill one of my nerite snails.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was shocked. I saw there was about 4 or 5 of them
dogpiling this knee right snail, and it was too late. He was gone.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of enjoy watching them on when they're out in the hunt. I don't get to see them very often because they'll hide out. You know, they'll kind of go to the back of the tank or whatever.
Hmm.
But that's one of the things that I do tend to stare at a lot when I get to see them. It's interesting. They draw out that big old straw that they got and start
Yeah,
siphoning away the other ones. It's kind of like, wow,
yeah, it's super
nature is
cool.
wild.
I ended up tossing a little handful of them into the 180 here just because I did see some ram's horn snails in here, and I was like, let me just. I think I threw in like three, like four or five of them or so. And every now and then, like I'll see when there's one right here hiding under. There he is, a little whiptail, and they'll bury themselves into the sand, kind of like the Malaysian trumpet snails do. But I mean, again, it's not this at the same number of them that you'll see come out. So I'm totally fine with having the assassin snails in here, honestly.
Now, had them breed in your tanks?
The assassin snails, yeah. I started off with a group. I think it's like 15 of them. I got a
Oh, okay.
bag at one of the club meetings that I'm part of. Somebody brought in a bag. I think it was like 12 or 15 of them. I put a few of them in some of my more snail infested tanks, and I would notice. I've noticed the eggs like they're almost like little squares with like a translucent square with a white dot in the middle.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, over the course of a few weeks, I would see tiny, tiny, tiny little assassin snails, and they would grow up. They'd eat the snails, and now I think I have them in almost every tank.
Okay, I'm gonna have to keep in the lookout for that because for a fish room, if you're looking to make a little bit of side money, that's definitely the snail to keep because
Oh yeah,
everybody's looking for assassin snails.
well yeah. I mean, everybody's got some type of some pest snail somewhere.
So
It's
now
definitely easy.
you got assassin snails, you got ultims if you can breed them. You're on your way to have a really good side hustle.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. I mean, again, I don't really do this kind of to make money necessarily. Like, I like to keep the fish, and if I can get them to spawn, that's, best case scenario. But if not, I'm kind of more of a fish keeper as opposed to like somebody looking to make a living off of this. Like, I'm not really,
Yeah.
I don't want to make a living off of it. I don't want to view these guys as dollar signs. Unfortunately, with how expensive certain things can be, it definitely does help to have that extra income. But, to see it as just like, oh, everything here is breeding for profit, like it's not necessarily just profit. It's kind of more the experience of all of it.
Yeah, if you can generate enough money where it self sustains your hobby, that's kind of like the ultimate goal for a lot of
Yeah.
people,
Yeah,
where it
that's,
allows you to buy newer fish that you want and not have to go into the household budget. You know,
yeah.
it just kind of pays for itself.
Yeah, that's, the goal kind of I'm working towards to keep things down here self-sustaining where, the cost of fish food or new fish that I get comes specifically from the fish room. Like, I don't want to have to dip into personal funds to be able to, keep doing things down here.
Yeah, that was kind of always that's kind of been the deal with here in my household. Is kind of like my wife, as long as I'm not. There was an initial startup cost, but now it basically runs itself.
Yeah.
With the little bit of monetization I get from YouTube and the fish that I'll either sell or trade or whatever, it's kind of self sustaining now. I've gotten to that point where I want it. Now I got to increase a little bit because I do want to buy that mini split, but
Yeah,
I want my fish room to pay for it. I don't want to pay for it.
absolutely. I mean, these things got to start working for us somehow.
Yeah, there's got to be a little bit of return.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, again, I've seen, some YouTubers out there and stuff like that they are specific, breeding for profit. Everything has to be for profit, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not the goal that I'm necessarily going for. I just kind of want to keep the fish that I like, breed them if I can breed them, and again, share it with other hobbyists because things are, certain fish can get pretty expensive. Especially some of the rarer stuff like I've got some snow white bristlenose plecos in this 20-gallon here, and I had bought originally 4 of them, and they were like almost $40 a piece. And
Mm.
these are bristlenose plecos.
Yeah.
So it was, an investment, but now they've grown up, spawned, and I've got 2 spawns in the breeder box here. There's another spawn growing out in the tank. So like I'm hoping once these guys are big enough, I can start sharing them, bring it to my clubs and, share the fish with other people so that, they're more readily available. That's really the thing. I would like to have these fish be more available to everybody else, especially like some of the younger people. I mean, there's some kids, like actual kids, like 12 to 11 years old that come to the club meetings, and a 12-year-old is not going to have $40 to spend on a fish.
Yeah.
So if I can help these kids out and help keep the kids in the hobby, that's really all that matters.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing too, though. What's the benefit of having the clubs is that you can get your hands on stuff that you might not find locally sourced either. So that's
Yeah,
always a
and
good.
for a fraction of the price too. There's certain things that go at the club meetings, and even like some of the auctions and stuff that they have, that if you were to go to a local fish store to buy it, you'd be paying, triple the price of what you got it at.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You see that one is interesting because I've been to some of our swaps
Hmm.
and there's fish that are relatively common in the market, but for some reason at a swap they'll fetch a lot more money. I think about a part of it is the frenzy of people bidding and they lose
Yeah,
of what, and they get caught up in that moment and end up paying a lot more for fish. And I've seen it where rarer fish or harder to find fish will go for nothing, like
yeah.
$2 or $3 for a bag, and it's like, what?
It's
It's
funny you
just I
mentioned
haven't
that.
been able to figure out fish club swaps as to what's gonna be what's gonna fetch a lot of money and what isn't. Which
Yeah, I went through and experienced something similar to that. So a few months back, I went to the Bucks County auction, and like you said, I was like, okay, so you would think the rarer stuff would sell for more, and not. I saw it was a trio, 2 trios of koi guppies, which aren't super hard to find, and they're relatively easy fish to breed. These two
yeah.
trios of koi guppies sold for over $100.
Yeah,
But
it's the
then
craziest thing. It's just,
I
you know,
brought in a trio of either a trio or a pair, I forget what it was, of my leopard frog plecos, and they sold for $85. Granted, I'm fine with that because again, I'm not looking to get rich off of this, but just the comparison of like a pleco to some guppies, the price difference was just crazy to me.
yeah, but there, I guess with guppies, I kind of maybe will agree here with Redneck Aquatics Stan. He says that they could be possibly a little bit healthier, but I think a lot of with the line guppies, they've been inbred so much that I think they're not as hardy as just regular fancy guppies that have genetics from everything else.
Yeah,
So
yeah. When I my the first fish room that I started was kind of I was faced, in the more live bearer type of thing. So like I had a whole bunch of different types of guppies that I wanted to keep, and like the blue mosaic, the purple mosaics, a lot of the mosaic types. But I learned relatively quickly that a lot of these guppies have been, like you said, line bred so much that either A, they're not the healthiest, or two, they just don't live that long. And I didn't like having a fish that only lived what, like a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it may be. But when I was mixing the guppies, I would take the guppies and I would have some culls or whatever, and I wouldn't, like euthanize any culls. I would just put them into a mixed guppy tank. Those guys lived way longer than some of the line bred stuff.
yeah, yep. I don't know. It's just I've like I said, my fish room is mostly sorry, live bears, and that's what I'm finding out. It's just for a while there, I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna set up the rack that sits right behind me. It's basically my breeder rack,
Hmm.
and I was working on straightening out a couple of lines, and I was thinking, all right, I'm gonna sell some, straight lines, and I kind of opened it up to the community here, and I still have it. It's a 55, just a regular 55-gallon tank, where I was throwing all my coals from me trying to straighten out a guppy line, right?
Hmm.
And they'd come in here, they'd kind of look at the lines that I had kind of worked on, and they would be like, yeah, those are cool, whatever. But they always gravitated towards the coal tank. And
Yeah.
that's the one that really pays for my fish room is the coal guppy tank.
Yeah, it's just
Because,
the fancy mixed guppies. Like you don't know what you're gonna. I think that's what it is, kind of too. You don't know what you're going to get from all the different colors mixing together. And I feel like that's kind of what got me into the live bearer scene is you didn't know what you were gonna get. Like
yeah.
you could put this color and that color together, and you would get something completely out of the blue, and it's just one of the prettiest looking little fish you ever had. But then it's like trying to recreate that is tough because again you have so many different genetics that it's just luck of the draw at that point.
Yeah, I think with me, with my realization was that only like real hardcore hobbyists, people that have multiple tanks, really are the only ones that really care about straight lines.
Yeah.
The general public, who is which eventually who I was trying to sell to, they just want color.
Yep.
So that's what it was with that guppy, that mud tank. I call them mud guppies or
Yeah.
whatever. But that's what gravitated them towards that, is because they had all these different colors, and that's what they wanted. They
Yeah.
could care less about having all the guppies looking the same. They wanted to get the ones where they could get red ones, purple ones, yellow ones, green ones. That's what they
Hmm.
wanted.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what? I quit trying to work so hard to straighten out lines. If I get a straight line, I'll still breed them in there, and I'll still throw some of that genetics into the mud guppy tank and see what happens. But yeah, my mixed fancy guppies are, I have to say, are my bread and butter fish that kind of pay for the fish room.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's like you said, it's all the colors. That's especially with, some of the not necessarily newer hobbies, but or hobbyists, but the people that aren't as serious as, some others that just want, colors. If you can get one fish that gives you every color on the rainbow, you're doing good. At that point, you see all these different colors. Oh, look at the blue one, look at the red one, and the green one here, and that's kind of what draws most people in. It's the colors. You're getting as close to a saltwater tank as you can without having to deal with salt water.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But yeah, again, very impressive what you're doing there. Now, besides, I know you said you were doing plecos and cories. What other stuff are you working on and trying to, just for your own purpose, that you're trying to breed in your fish room?
Well, I mean, I do have some guppies also. So I have in these bottom 20s, I've got these little like split tail kind of little
Oh, cool.
guppies. And then out of this line, actually, I noticed that the females were dropping some golden bodied versions of these guys. So these are obviously the silver bodies. I started taking all the little golden body ones and taking them over here. So like this is one of the males here.
Oh,
And
they
they're the
look like
same.
Japanese blue
Yeah,
lyre tails.
very similar little light tail guppies, but these guys are golden bodied. So I just started separating these two. And those are really the only guppies that I have that I would not necessarily line breeding, but just trying to keep the silver bodies and the gold bodies separate. But then I just recently got myself some baby electric blue cars, some four more that I want to try to grow up to hopefully breed those guys. Um, and then there's the geos. I did unfortunately lose one of the geos, the albino redhead tapajo. So I've got the one guy left here. Do still have the pair of Heckelei here, albino Heckelei. So there's a nice big male,
Wow,
and the
that's an interesting nuku
female.
hump.
Yeah, he's a big guy. The female is actually hiding behind this terracotta pot, but this guy here is definitely, a looker. He's got some really nice colors there.
How
Um,
big is that fish? About five,
this
six
guy,
inches?
yeah, probably, yeah, like maybe close to 6, 7 inches. Honestly, he's a pretty big guy. This is a 50-gallon tank, so
Oh,
he's a pretty big dude. My buddy actually has another female, so he said he might just bring that female to me so I can have a trio in here and hopefully get some spawning. Because the female that's in here, she's on the smaller side, and she doesn't really seem very interested in spawning with him. So um, hopefully those guys get going soon. But then I've also got, I mean, like I mentioned before, the Parva rainbow. These guys are a dwarf rainbow species, so they don't really get much bigger than this. These guys are adult sized, and they're 2.5 inches. Some of the males. So that's those guys, and then I do have my 236 super whites in here. You can see some of the
oh wow.
babies there in between the caves and some of the bigger guys here in the actual caves, but they haven't spawned for me yet. And then I do have my Apistos that are in this tank here. I've got, I believe it's 2 males and 3 females, along with this cauliflower swordtail. She's the lone female. I lost the male, and she's not pregnant, unfortunately. So nothing coming from her. Hopefully, I can find her a male soon. But then, I mean, I've got my discus pair here, which again, my male's not doing too hot. And this is the koi angel pair, koi marble. And again, you can see the little babies on the slate here, kind of. They're in the little corner there, but they're protective of them. So I'm gonna be leaving those guys in there. And then these are another rare kind of fish. These are some pencil fish that I have.
Oh,
These guys are Nanostoma Senepa Super Red, I believe it is. I'm probably butchering that name, but these guys were a pricey little fish too. I got these guys the same time I got the baby Altons, and I would love to get these guys to spawn because some of these guys have like super nice red on them.
those are egg layers?
Yes, they are not a library. They're egg layers. I believe they lay eggs in like dense plants and stuff like that. So that's why I've got a lot of floating hornwort in here. I want to eventually get these guys into their own tank with some moss to see if maybe they'll spawn in there.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, I've got a whole group of gold laser cories back here and stuff too. So there's a lot of stuff that I want to get going. I just need to actually start focusing on one specific fish and getting that going at a time. I think my ADHD kind of gets the better of me. I don't want to do everything at once.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to, slow things down and focus on one specific fish at a time and just trying to get that going right now. I do still want to do my little changes here in the fish room. Like I said, kind of add more 20s, get rid of some of these 40s, and really separate fish so that I can get them into their own dedicated tanks to try and get them to spawn and bring stuff to my clubs and stuff like that. I've thankfully met a lot of really really nice people at the clubs that I'm in, and some of the stuff that I have down here I wouldn't have had possible if it wasn't for some of these people. Like the dwarf rainbows in this tank. I got these guys originally as a part of a grow out contest in one of my clubs. So I got them as tiny little fry and obviously grew them out. And I originally had 6, and one of them died almost like 2 days after. And the last 5 ended up being all males with my luck. So one of the guys from the clubs, when we brought them in for, the judging of the grow out contest, one of my now friends, he ended up with 2 females. He lost all his others and ended up with 2 females. He was like, "You guys, you can have them. I can't breed only females. So if you want, take them. Hopefully, you can get them to spawn." I was like, "Okay, cool." And I thankfully got them to spawn, and that's what's growing out here in this tank. You can see I've got a little group of them growing there.
Nice.
So once these guys get big enough, I'm going to return the favor and I'm going to give him a little breeding group of them so he can have them also. I mean, like I said, I want to just spread fish in the hobby so they're more easily accessible to people.
What do you got in the breeder boxes?
So in the breeder boxes, this is the first 2 spawns of the snow white bristlenose plecos.
Oh, okay.
There's, oof, I don't even know how many are in there. This breeder box has lemon blue-eye bristlenose plecos, the short fins. And then the last one here is long fin lemon blue eye bristlenose. So I mean, like I said, I'm doing a lot of the plecos, bristle noses specifically. Like this one here, this tank has calicos. Um, this tank here has some super reds. There's one of my big males right there. And then I've
That's
got
a
a bunch
nice
of
group of
cardinals in
cardinals.
here. Yeah, I've got this about, I think like 50 or 60 cardinals in there that are going to be going into my 75-gallon relatively soon. This was kind of just a temporary holding tank for them. But yeah, so right now, what's breeding the most is the bristle noses, which, that's not a shocker. They're bristle noses. They kind of breed relatively easily.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, the snow whites, they cost me almost $40 a piece. So now that I've got a whole bunch of them, I can kind of help with reducing the cost of these fish. Because I mean, $40 for a bristlenose pleco, it's a little up there. And again, I got them. They were, I think it was like an inch and a half when I bought them or something like that. So they weren't even full size.
Yeah. I was reading a comment, but I guess it's part of a different conversation. Yeah. Well, we've almost been on for 2 hours.
Oh man,
You know, like I said, I've always enjoyed watching your fish room. It,
appreciate that.
I really like how you got all that patos. I just really stands out because you've framed it so well where the contrasting of the aquarium stands and the walls and all that stuff really makes it pop,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
all that greenery you got in there. And I having a fish room, I can appreciate how good it looks
Thank
and
you.
how neat it is, that I'm kind of like, man, I'm slacking.
Again, I can't take credit. All I did was just put potos in most of them. I mean, the stands that's built by myself, but I like you said, the contrast between dark stands and then the greenery everywhere. So like the potos is probably growing maybe due to my negligence of taking care of the tanks. They're absorbing a lot of the nitrates and stuff, so they're able to grow the way they are
Now,
growing. So
that
it's
big light on the top, that's you use, what is it, gutters, and then
yeah,
inserted the lights in there. I like how you don't get a lot of the glare
exactly.
because of the way you set that up.
Yeah, so I forget who I saw that did something similar to this. I can't remember. I don't want to take credit for it, but I have the linkable LED lights where this full rack is on one light timer and this rack's on another. So I didn't want to have that glare because that was a problem that I had with my old fish room. I had the lights hanging from the ceiling and it was the same LED lights, but again, that glare was blinding. So I forget who did it, but they did it where they inset them into just gutters, and I was like, that is absolutely genius. So that's what's going across the entire top of both racks.
It's cool because it looks like one giant light.
Yeah, yeah. That's a nice little feature to have with not being blinded by my lights.
Well, deal. We'll go ahead and wrap it up if you want to turn the camera around so that we
Sounds
can kind of.
good. Let's get this. Front camera. Here we go.
Like I said, I really appreciate the fact that you accepted the invitation and were willing to come on here.
Of course.
Um,
Thank you for having me.
and the other thing is, like I said, I've really enjoyed what you've been doing. I like the fact that you documented everything from the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of left like a blueprint for anybody that's interested in setting up a fish room. They could go and check that catalog of videos. And the way you filmed it, I really liked it because every video was a section. I remember you did like first the racks, and then it was the airlines, and then it was the lights, but it's all done in simple videos that they can watch and learn how to be able to do them. So
Yeah.
um, and now I guess what would be interesting is see what happens with your fish room and how it continues to grow and what direction you decide to go with it.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how things go down here too. I mean, you never know what's gonna happen. So really, I'm just kind of rolling with the punches at this point.
Yeah, and also what's hopefully what you get out of this is a little bit more exposure. People are aware of your channel and they'll be able to go
Thank you.
check it out. And um know that there's a community out here that, you know, we all kind of support each other, and we're all interested in seeing each other grow. So hopefully
Absolutely.
that's something that gives you a little bit more people that you can connect with. Again, you know, being able to find people that are locally in your area is always cool too. So
Yeah.
you know, with that being said, I just want to say thank you guys for joining us this morning. And we'll see you guys soon. I think I have enough channels now, newer channels that I found to be able to do another episode of the plug. And so be on the lookout for that. With that being said, thank you guys and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll see you guys soon.
See you guys.
Oh, wait. Before we go,
Mhm.
how can they find you? What social medias can they find you on?
So I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is DioAquatics. Same thing with YouTube. So those are the two primary, social media outlets that I'm using right now. Um, I don't post as frequently on my Instagram, but I do try to, post on there when I upload a video onto YouTube, which is again every Sunday, either Saturday or Sunday. I'm trying to get more consistent with the days that I'm posting, but both of them are Dio Aquatics, DIO Aquatics, and it's my name on here. So you guys
All
can
right.
check me out there.
And what's the fish club that you belong to?
So there's two of them. There's the Norwalk Aquarium Society, and then the Danbury Area Aquarium Society.
All right. All right, guys. Well, with that being said, thank you again, all you guys for taking the time out and being here with us, and we'll see you guys soon. You guys take care.